Hi friends, Laurelei Black here from Blade Broom, and this week we're going to be talking about 6 ways to banish negative energy or entities. So pretty much any kind of unseen thing that you're trying to get rid of within your magical space, yourself, or your personal space, whether you are able to identify it or not. These 6 ideas or techniques should be able to help you out. And they're all very simple and easy to put into action. A lot of them don't actually even involve tools that you need to use. So some of them you can just do yourself wherever you are. You don't have to have anything. I thought it was a good idea to talk about these at this time of year as we're going into the very darkest parts of the year when a lot of folks, myself included, sort of deal with seasonal affective disorder and really fighting off those winter blues. And this has been a particularly hard year with all the isolation that we're feeling and that type of thing. So I'm hoping that these techniques and tips will be of use to you in your craft practice as well as just sort of in your daily life. So let's get started with those. The first 3 actually can be classified together in a group, but they can be used individually as well. So if you can remember them together by this grouping that I'm going to call bell, book, and candle. They've been used together since ancient times, really. It doesn't specifically have to be a bell or a book, though. So we're going to talk about what other things those can be. So let's start with bell. Bell is actually a reference to any kind of sound or vibration to change up the negative vibrations that are in the space, or to dissipate the negative energies, or to send away the negative spirit that may be bothering you. Iron bells particularly have a long history of being used in this capacity, but it doesn't have to be an iron bell. It can be a brass bell, a silver bell, golden bell, a porcelain bell, or a jingle bell, you know, since we're coming into the holiday season, and a lot of us will have those on hand. Or it can be, again, it doesn't have to be a bell. It can be something like a small gong or wind chimes or a singing bowl. It doesn't have to be something that would even be a musical instrument per se. It could be pots and pans, you know, or just a pot or pan, maybe with a wooden spoon that you're banging on it, you know, just something that's going to make noise. Harmonious noise would be nice, you know, something that's a tone. You know, you could intone using your own voice, you know, sustaining a note or going through a cadence of notes. You could play music out loud, not just on your earbuds necessarily, but, you know, change the vibration of the energy around you. So that's one thought, and you can get really creative with that. I've given you lots of ideas there. So run with that one, change the vibrational energy using sound in some way. So let's move on to book. Again, book doesn't have to be book. When we're talking about book, what has historically been referenced is some volume of sacred text and reading aloud from that volume of sacred text or reciting sacred words. You have to believe in those sacred words. It's not enough just to say something that somebody else believes in. They have to mean something to you. But if you tap into the power of what those words mean, even if it's not necessarily from a tradition that you have deep faith in, if you believe what those words say, then they are words of power for you. So you might go to something, for instance, from the Psalms, if you have a deep connection to those, or you might, for instance, use, I'm going to share with you 2 phrases that I do like to use from ceremonial tradition, and they're both Greek phrases. So one is hekes, hekes, este bebeloi, and the other is apapantos kakadaimenos. And they both basically mean get away profane things, or away all ye evil spirits. They just use slightly different dialects to get that done. So, and they each have their own history and their own tradition around when they were being used. So if you're interested in those, you can always look them up and, you know, get some more information about that. But those are both great phrases to use. You can use your own cleansing chants, and there are lots and lots of cleansing chants available. I'm going to share with you here some cleansing chants that my own coven uses, and these are great for banishing if you want to use tools and things to do that with. You can also extend this, so Apapantos Kakadaimenos comes from a larger ritual called the Star Ruby, and you could learn that full Star Ruby, which is a much more complicated ritual. It doesn't require tools, you don't have to have anything but your own body, but it is quite involved. But it's all, you know, in Greek. Maybe a little Chaldean. That's something that you're going to have to rehearse and practice and at least be able to go through in your own mind's eye. And the same thing with the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is in Latin, and it's very similar. Those are both from the ceremonial paradigm of magic. I will also share with you under this book category that when I asked my own teacher years and years ago about sacred words and what sacred words, what words of power our tradition used, she said then that words that she found to be the most powerful were words like no and stop. And I offer that to you now, that words of power don't necessarily have to be foreign, ancient words or words that were given to us from the gods in vision, that they can be words like no and get out. So doing something like banging pots and pans together around your space and saying get out, get out, get out can be very effective at banishing and dispelling negative spirits, especially if you have the fire of conviction behind you while you do it. Speaking of fire of conviction, that brings us to the candle in our bell, book, and candle formula. Fire has been used in banishing rituals since time immemorial. It is a great transmuter of all things. It literally changes the structure of that which it touches. And light casts out the darkness. And I am definitely not one of those witches that says that we're all light and love and positivity. There should be a balance to light and dark. And we're not going to hold those things in perfect balance. You know, we're not going to walk in a perfect balance. There are going to be times when you're way out of balance on things. And I don't think that we should try to walk always in the light. You get burned up if you're always in the light. But we can't let ourselves always be in the dark either. You get moldy and funky if you're always in the dark. Things start to grow on you in bad ways. So, you know, spend some time in the dark, you know, plumb those depths, but you gotta work your way back up. You gotta find the light. You gotta burn out the shadows sometimes, you know, and shine light into the darkness. And fire does that for us. So bell, book, and candle. And you don't have to use all three together. You can use one at a time. But they're super effective when you do use all three. So let's talk about the other three. We have, for the other three, the first is salt. And it is another anciently used mineral actually for this, and it is super available to us these days, and you can use it just as it is, and just sprinkle salt, You can put it into your food, you can put it into your incense recipes, into your oils, or into your other formulas, into your waters. You can put it into water itself and then sprinkle that. You can put it into your bath water and take ritual baths. Salt is so versatile. So salt, salt, salt. Number 5 is smoke, actually. So smoke as a banishing agent is, again, super ancient and super easy. This is cleansing with an airy element, so that might be very appealing to you, and certainly it's very appealing and very trendy in popular culture. It's very trendy right now as smudging, and I would encourage you, unless it's part of your cultural traditions, to get away from the concept of smudging, because that is a very specific cultural ritual. However, cleansing with smoke, banishing with smoke, is something that, if you do your research on it, that is actually sort of inherent to almost all magical and religious traditions worldwide. It goes back anciently everywhere. You can find evidence of it in ancient China and ancient Greece and ancient Rome and ancient Egypt and ancient Sumer. It's just all over the place. So some other kinds of, besides sage, some of the other botanicals and resins that you can banish and cleanse a space with include thyme, eucalyptus, and peppermint, all of which, oh, and rosemary, all of which are like fabulous healing and healthful herbs. And part of the reason that they are so good at cleansing and banishing negative, cleansing a space and banishing negative energies is because they actually have these like really powerful healing properties. They go hand in hand. And then cedar, frankincense, and the artemisias like wormwood and mugwort are actually really powerful at this as well. So those are things that you can consider, either making into mixed incenses or just burning individually. They're really, really effective. And then the very last one that I have for you is banishing with laughter. So again, this is one that does not require a tool at all. It just takes you. So banishing with laughter is a great one to do. You can do it by yourself. You can do it even when you're out in public. People won't know why you're laughing necessarily, but if you're feeling overcome with negative emotions or with a negative situation, or think that there might be, a negative entity around, or if you've just done a very somber sort of ritual and there's a lot of just sort of heavy energy, maybe not necessarily negative, but just sort of heavy, and you need to change that up, you can sort of intentionally laugh. Eventually it's going to turn into a very authentic laugh. That's been my experience of it every time I've ever done it. So try that out. It especially turns into very authentic and sort of silly laughter when you're doing it within a group, because somebody's going to do something like giggle, snort, or fart, or or something ridiculous. And again, to make another sort of pop culture reference, like it's kind of like the ridiculous charm in Harry Potter, right? So sometimes the only way to face those very, very negative aspects, like a boggart in your life, is to laugh at it. Because sometimes those things are just nothing but ridiculous. So anyway, bell, book, candle, sound, sacred words or chants, and fire, smoke, salt, and laughter. I hope you guys have found this information useful and helpful. There are so many ways to banish. These are just some really simple and accessible ones. that you can put into practice right now if you haven't already started doing that. And I would love to hear what you're using down in the comments. I've got some resources for you in the description box below, including Book of Shadows pages that I have created that include a lot of these kinds of resources and recipes and rituals and that kind of thing that would all line up with this information. So check that out if you're interested. And like, comment, share, do all the things, and I will see you guys here next Monday at noon. Bye, guys.